That the most feared serial killer in history was only this kind of smiling man, you would never suspect he was the dark figure lurking and hiding in some dark corner. There was more to him. The smile disarms his victims, and the words veil pure evil. And Ted Bundy comes to mind, but he is something else.
My chance to talk to the press. Contrary to Section 78204 Florida statute.
For sure, an educated, great talker would not be associated with the murderer type. He became pretty deadly this way as well. His story is that of manipulation, horror, and deception. It is the cold tale of Ted Bundy, the man whom the world viewed as fooling us all.
You think about getting out of here?
Well, legally, sure.
The man behind the monster. Ted Bundy was born Theodore Robert Cowell on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. His life had been steeped in deception even at a very young age, where to his grandparents he was their son and his mother his sister to the rest of the world. It even later helped fan Bundy's flames of resentment and isolation. Nevertheless, with all the aforementioned conflicts, Bundy was bright and a charmer. He was once an A student academically, studying psychology at the University of Washington. To those who knew him, he was a model pupil with a bright future ahead. But behind all this, something sinister was growing. His talent at manipulation, persuasion, and conning would very soon take a horrific turn, propelling him into a path of unimaginable violence. Early omens of terror. Honor Bundy's interest in crime developed during his teenage years. He became obsessed with violent detective stories and books on crime, often dwelling on pictures of murder. His growing curiosity led him to experiment with voyeurism, peeping through windows at night into unsuspecting women. These early thrills hinted at the darkness that was soon to engulf him. In maturity, this charm and intelligence veiled his disturbed nature. He became skilled at emulating normalcy, so people trusted him. However, in the inner recesses, desires were building. By the early 1970s, women began disappearing in the Pacific Northwest. The police were baffled, but Bundy was just warming up. His signature methods. Bundy was quite the meticulous killer. Frequently, he faked injuries to appear handicapped and was using crutches or a sling to win his victims' trust. His appearance and personality made them feel safe. He dragged them into his Volkswagen Beetle, where he overpowered and abducted them before eventually killing them. His killing was methodical, blunt trauma, and then strangled, which left almost nothing. He was not just killing and forgetting. He would even go back to the crime scene and relive the horror of what he unleashed. This icy habit showed no remorse at all and had a very insatiable thirst for control and domination. The massacre spree. Between 1974 and 1978, Bundy's killing spree stretched over 4 states: Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado. Bundy was a calculating predator who would take time to observe his victims' habits and routines. Most of them were young college women who all wore the same haunted look: slight, dark-haired, middle-parted. Bundy attacked them during daylight hours, at times pretending he was a battered victim, and at others pretending to be an authority and begging them to accept his version.
Exercise in the courtroom. They're afraid to share it with the defendant.
What we have here, Ken, let's see. You always say an indictment, all right? Why don't you read it to me?
He could make them fall prey to him as he sexually attacked them, took them by force, and finally killed them sometime later. The gentlemen were able to blend in so well with society and commit such evil atrocities that made him one of America's most feared serial killers of all time. His murders were not mindless killings, but very calculated and committed with a horrible precision. In 1975, Bundy was finally caught in Utah for a routine traffic violation. Something nobody in the authorities could have suspected. He was one of the deadliest men in the history of U.S. The escapes and arrests. Bundy was a trickster who didn't only swindle his prey, but also defrauded all the lawmen on his tracks. His first escape ever was in June 1977, when he was left unattended to in a court library. He took his chance and leaped out of a second-floor window, escaping into the Colorado wild for 6 days before he was caught. 6 months later, after suffering enough jail time, Bundy contrived another, this time spectacular, escape. He crawled through a hole in the ceiling of his jail cell and slipped away unnoticed. He headed to Florida, which was the beginning of one of his most vicious and heinous attacks, the Chi Omega sorority house murders. The final attacks in January 1978, Ted Bundy arrived in Tallahassee, Florida, after he escaped from prison. He had no money, no real plan, just a huge appetite for violence. It didn't take him long to focus and zero in on the Florida State University Chi Omega sorority house. On the late evening of January 15th, Bundy snuck into the Chi Omega house unnoticed. Within less than 15 minutes, an explosion of violence ensued. He brutally attacked 4 women, bludgeoning and strangling them in their beds as they slumbered. 2 of the women, Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman, never survived. Their bodies were ruled by horrific signs of unchecked rage by Bundy. The other 2 victims were Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner, which strangely survived the brutality, but would always bear severe injury marks on them. The severity of the attack was even disturbing to the most notorious sleuths and grizzled old citizens. Yet Bundy was warming up. 4 weeks after that, he abducted 12-year-old Kimberly Leach from a school in Lake City, Florida. This also made it one of the largest manhunts in the history of Florida due to the rage this caused in the community. Weeks later, the violence had reached its darkest point when his remains were discovered in a wooded area. It was then that everyone realized it could not be a time when there was a chance of facing a monster on the loose like Bundy. It had risen to a point at which they could not be disregarded, and law enforcement started closing in on his trail. The capture and trial, it was on February 15th, 1978, that Bundy's luck ran out when he was pulled over in Pensacola, Florida. The fact that he was driving a stolen car and was acting erratically led to his arrest. He would not get away this time. His was one of the first ever nationally televised. Bundy, who described himself as a narcissist, then chose to represent himself in court. He felt that he could outwit the system. He played the press like a fiddle, won the hearts of passers-by, and demanded innocence, even when presented with overwhelming proof to the contrary. But the jurors were not deaf to the drama. In 1979, Bundy received a death sentence for the Chi Omega murders. In 1980, he received another death sentence for the murder of Kimberly Leach. The final days behind bars serving his death warrant, Bundy told authorities that he had committed over 30 murders. Many specialists believe the count is much larger. Spent more than 9 years on the death row, had used up all avenues of appeals. But on January 24th, 1989, the state of Florida electrocuted him in the electric chair. And from that day, even before his body had cooled, rioting was there outside the prison gates. Justice had finally been served to them, but horror Bundy left behind would always be alive. Ted Bundy's story is one of deception, horror, and the terrifying reality that evil doesn't always appear in a monster. He was this nightmare hidden behind a friendly smile. His case changed the whole approach to serial killers in law enforcement, and his crimes developed criminal profiling and forensic psychology. From the very beginning, his life was built on lies. The deception that surrounded his birth was only a glimpse into the twisted mind he would become. Imagine a world where the person you trust to help you, the man who appears kind, intelligent, and well-spoken, is the very monster you should fear the most. He used intelligence as his weapon, persuasion as his tool, and the kindness he faked as the ultimate disguise. Today, Bundy is one of the most infamous serial killers in history, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who blend in the most. The Ted Bundy story is a haunting reminder that danger often lurks in the most unexpected places. That disguise was cute but hid brutal truths, truth that ended lives for innocent women and changed the history eternally. In case you're having fun while watching this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to get even deeper into crime stories. So tell us which one you'd like us to tackle next by letting us know in the comments below. Till the next time, stay safe, keep aware, and never trust the appearances.